Direct from Foxborough, Massachusetts, the gem of Norfolk County, and taped at the studios of Foxborough Cable Access. It's Foxborough Central, and here's your host, Bob Hickey.
And welcome to another fantastic episode of Foxborough Central. I'm Bob Hickey, your host, welcoming you and thanking you for taking a little bit of time to join with me and my guests as we talk about the people, events, and organizations that make Foxborough truly the gem of Norfolk County. I'm going to say that one of our gems is our representation at the State House, both in the Senate and in the House of Representatives. We've been ably led by some really qualified individuals for so many, many years. And I'm honored today to be joined by one of those folks, our state representative of the 1st Bristol, Jay Barrows, Fred J. Barrows. How are you doing, sir?
Thank you. Great. Glad to be with you today.
Well, thank you for taking the time to come by and spend a half hour with our friends here in Foxborough Central. And people tune in to talk about events or something that is burning issue or something they want you to get out and do. I'd like to take this for a little personal break, if I could, and make it just a brag show. Because I got to tell you, I am tickled with the representation that you give us and with the work that you do. And I've known you, Jay, before you became a legislator, back in the day when you were insurance agent, and I, new to town, and this is where I go.
Yep.
But then also as the leader on the Tri-Town Chamber of Commerce, and then in just getting to know you and in the volunteer work that you did, coming out to here on Cable Access to help with our auctions and other things. You've always been around, and I always see you at the Eagle Scout ceremonies and the Cub Scout ceremonies. My own son.
Right. Congratulations to Kevin, too, by the way.
Well, yes, Kevin. But that's what got me thinking that we should just do a little bragging on ourselves, because you're always, rather on the self-effacing side, it's always about teamwork and working with others and garnering agreements among different factions. But that doesn't happen unless somebody exerts a little bit of leadership and has the longevity, the staying power to make that happen. Because frankly, if it's a 2-year and you're done, you're not going to have a lot of time to build those relationships, make those connections, and really create the opportunity for these agreements to happen. Rome wasn't built in a day, and Massachusetts is still being built just a scant 400 years after some people landed on a rock. So I'm going to take this opportunity to talk a little bit about you, if you will.
Okay.
Is that all right?
Well, I'll try to do the best I can, but it has truly been an honor to be elected the number of times that I have been, and to return to Beacon Hill. And you're right. I mean, I think we get into discussions, term limit, should we term limit people? And I know a lot of my colleagues will run on that, and then once they get in, they say, "Nah, I better not."
Well, we've seen that in Massachusetts, now haven't we?
We have.
And that's just plain wrong.
Yeah. Well, it's one that you have to develop a relationship with the bureaucracy. If you don't, you won't get anything done. So if you're cycling in there 2 or 4 years, you don't even leave a trace.
Right.
Whether it's the water and sewer thing that we did with the 3 towns, we needed to build relationships with DEP, EPA, the Water Commission.
With the 3 towns.
And with the 3 towns too, sure.
The Water and Sewer Commissioners, the Board of Selectmen, and the town management in each town, because each town is structured just a little bit differently. So let's start off with that. Let's talk about that. Folks may or may not remember, I used to be a member of the Board of Selectmen here, and back when I was on the board, we were combating this horrible issue of no sewer flow, and prior to me being on the board, it was an issue, and it's still an issue today. And the issue is not one that was made overnight, and it isn't one where nobody cared. It was one where decisions were made and then things happened. We entered into an agreement, and our Board of Water and Sewer Commissioners are wonderful folks, and back in, I think it was the 70s, was it?
Late 70s, early 80s.
Late 70s, early 80s, entered an agreement with Mansfield and Norton to create a system where Mansfield owned a plant and we were customers, which was fine because it allowed us to tie in without taking on a lot of the capital costs.
Right.
But as a customer, we ended up being just a customer. And
that's right. When we don't have any more to give you.
And then the rules changed because with Title V, you no longer were measured by actual flow, but by allowable flow. And so if you're permitted for 2 bedrooms, you have X number of gallons. If you're permitted for a restaurant, you have to have X number of gallons. Now, whether you're really using it or not has no bearing on it,
right,
because it's what's permitted. And then, of course, you end up with issues such as infrastructure and rainwater runoff and that sort of thing that can be fixed, but you still can't get away from the elephant that the legislation has created a random and arbitrary number, which there's a science behind it, so it's not, I guess I shouldn't say random and arbitrary because I'm not
right,
a scientist,
right,
but it seemed to be a bit much. And
right,
all of a sudden that sucked up all of the available flow, which meant that there was no room for growth. The building next door to ours here at Cable Access, they wanted to put a laundromat in, the owners did, Mr. Bach, and could not do that because there was no flow.
Right.
And it was a very difficult struggle to get understanding there. So you came along, I think it was around 2007, 2008.
Yep, 2007.
Started looking at this issue and started trying to get the 3 entities to come together. But there was another law in the books, and that law was that, and this one I will say is random and arbitrary, that water flow could not be discharged into a community from which it did not originate. Am I right on that?
Interbasin Transfer Act.
It's been 8 years, but I remember it. It was a doozy.
It was a doozy.
And there was no science behind it. It was by the lines on a map, not by the lines in a watershed. And
right.
that's what was
not
so frustrating
aquifer,
about
exactly.
it. Okay,
yeah,
so I'm right.
Yeah, you were right. Absolutely.
Here we go.
You lived the whole thing with me.
Take it away.
No, it was just, it was some of those arcane rules that logic says it doesn't make any sense. So who will listen to us? And I was really fortunate. I had a great group of people. Again, the Water and Sewer Commissioners from Norton and Foxborough, who are different than the Board of Selectmen. And then Board of Selectmen in Mansfield gave us a couple of representatives. And we worked for nearly 8 years. It required state approval of a waiver of the Interbasin Transfer Act, which was the big linchpin, we thought. That was easy compared to getting everybody else, and to get Mansfield to divest themselves of their holdings in 100% control. Because you remember when you're on the board, we had battles with Mansfield. You remember when we tried to get the Y built on Mechanic Street. I was part of that with the chairman on the board of directors with the Y when that was coming up. And I can remember going into a meeting with the Water and Sewer Commissioners in Foxborough, and they said, don't ask us. You got to go to Mansfield to get the tie-in. And we ended up ultimately, to the good graces of Invincis, who helped us get that off the ground, and Craft Organization worked out a deal with Invincis with some of their held flow.
They had flow, absolutely.
And they saw the vision, and they got the idea and said, okay, we'll free that up, just get it approved. But that was my first, bite of the apple.
But that was huge because flow has value.
Oh,
and
huge value.
Particularly for a company, you limit yourself, then you're really limiting your economic ability to
do what they just did.
To do what they just did, because with that what was a $13 million investment in creating a new Foxborough
campus
company,
setting. I mean, it's a wonderful thing,
and it looks beautiful.
Absolutely, and
but it's going to be functional for the next decades.
Right, exactly. But without that flow, you can't do that.
That's right.
So we've seen in downtown Foxborough the effects of no flow, and
it's been static.
Exactly, and we had the situation in Mansfield that we were running out of what we had. We, using the word collectively, the owners, and then Norton didn't have any, because Norton's was all tied up with an old project back in the 80s. That Bay Bank had finally taken over this property, and so it was a mess. And to understand that not one of the communities that I represent would want to site a treatment plant in their backyard, where do you go? And so we went to where the plant was physically located, into Norton, and we had to work with the communities to buy land. We had to work with a family that had held land in trusts in 1778.
Really?
To get 60 acres, we needed it because not only can't you discharge water from one community to the other without that waiver, but you can't have a surface water discharging where you have to put it back in the ground, put it back into the aquifer of whence it came. So we went through trials and tribulations. I got screamed at, thrown out of meetings, and kicked out of town meetings. It was wild. But we stayed the course, and with the help of Senator Timilty, with Representative Kafka, who's got part of Mansfield and Sharon, Representative Poirier out of North Attleboro that had part of Norton and Mansfield, Representative Steve Howitt, and myself. We were able to work together and keep pushing, and it took us nearly 8 years. And so it's still on the radar, because what we're trying to do is cast some light to the state to say, hey guys, you're all talking about helping for economic development. This is a great opportunity, because we'll have 1 million gallons of flow. Housing is economic development. Commercial is economic development. And quite frankly, if you're on a property on some of these areas where it is really a critical need, and I can name a bunch of streets where the sewer pipe goes down the center of the road and you couldn't tie into it before.
My street is one.
Baker Street, thank you very much. And it goes right down. And so I think that in 5 years, we will see a rebirth of opportunity for people, a chance for investment. So some folks that want to come and try something will have an opportunity to do that. So that was really, for me, you know, whether I get the sewer treatment plant named after me in 50 years, I don't know. And certainly don't want everybody to remember me every time they flush. But it was an amazing undertaking, and really proud of the work that everybody did to help us with that.
Well, you mentioned, and by the way, how cool is it that my state rep knows that I live on Baker Street? I don't know if anybody caught that, but I did. Anyway, so you mentioned economic drivers, and one of the other areas that I always think of with you is your work on the Tri-Town Chamber of Commerce. And as a business owner and as an individual who really gets it when it comes to the concept that the economy is driven by people who want to live, but you have to have reasons for them to live: schools, play, work, and work being a key component. Without employers and employment opportunities and businesses and places to shop and places to eat and places to get your laundry done, that sort of thing, without all these things that go into making a community, you're not going to have those people. Without the people, you lose the vibrancy, and then you end up having a down cycle. So let's talk a little bit about Jay Barrows, the economic man.
Well, I've been very interested and have been given the opportunity to participate in tax increment financing opportunities that kind of level the playing field around the state, where we can go and chat with businesses and chat with communities to see if they're willing to work with them on property tax so that they can get the state tax credit, investment tax credit. And since 2007, I don't want to count, but it's probably been nearly 10 that we've played a role in. And again, bringing the support of the chamber, conveying that support from the chamber to the Board of Selectmen, conveying that from the Board of Selectmen to the town meeting folks that come by and take an interest in that. One of the...
And we're talking about TIFs.
Yes, okay. yes.
And we, of course, here in Foxborough...
We did Schneider.
Yep, we approved the TIFs for the Schneider, which at the time was Invencis.
Exactly.
And, to really support, make it worth their while, to make a huge investment and to really stay. Make a huge investment upgrading their facility.
Other states are eating our lunch and opportunities that they will afford people if they want to relocate. So we were really pleased with that. Horizon Beverage, huge opportunity down in Norton, where they took over an emptied, idled General Motors. General Motors plant.
Okay.
So that was the parts thing that GM had done, and under their bankruptcy, they lost it.
Sure.
Norton lost the TIF that they had given to GM, but was able to work with Horizon through, again, the help of the chamber and all of the local representation, and say, we want you guys to stay here. They added 150,000 square feet. They're an amazing employer. They do so much for the community. We got Auto Parts International into the Polaroid building in Norton. We've seen different ones in Mansfield that have come on, Covidian being one, done about 4 years ago. That was huge. So really have tried, again, to work with the chamber, get businesses to meet business people that are working in the communities, to be able to boast about the great scores that we have with former MCAS scores with Foxborough, Mansfield, and Norton. The fact that we've got Wheaton College in our backyard, access to the highways, 140, 495, Route 95, the train, God bless the MBTA, we get a lot of work to do on that. But to have that as an asset, to be so close to our communities is phenomenal. To work with GATRA, which is our local, bus service that moves people, whether they need a ride from the Foxborough parking lot up on County Street down to the train station, or however that works. But again, working with people to just boast about what we have. Beautiful, Sam Burns Athletic Field up at the high school, Mansfield, the Columbia Alumni Field there behind the high school, the Astro Turf or whatever we call it.
It's beautiful, yes.
It's gorgeous. It's lit. The kids love it. Premier Sports, the ice skating rinks, plural. You can't believe what they have added to our communities. On the weekends, forget about Xfinity Center or the Deutsche Bank TPC golf course.
Right.
Jimmy, you can't get a hotel room around here because the ice skating rink with 3 hockey rinks going 24/7, Premier Sports 24/7, keeping our kids busy. The high schools have seen just a resurgence of their athletic ability. The kids have played since they were little, and if they're into that, the Boy Scout organizations, which your son participated in. I mean, we've got a lot of great things. The churches, the communities, Founders Day, Mansfield Family Fun Night. We do Norton Family Night with fireworks, and I mean,
it's a great place to be.
It's a great in a community that comes together when there's a crisis.
Yep.
When there's a tragedy, there is not in all 3 of them. There's no one that can hold a candle to anyone. They're amazing communities, and that's, I think, in a large part by people knowing people, and whether that's through our chamber or that's through our Rotary clubs or the Lions clubs or Women of Today. I mean, the JCs. It goes on and on and on. In the participation again of the churches, it's not unusual to go to an event in Foxborough and the entire clergy is represented.
They're
true. All there.
That is very true.
They're all there and welcome. The work that we did on the child safety stuff here in town, and we're working
darkness to light.
Yeah,
yes.
from the why. I mean, what?
And taking a community approach to deal with a very bad situation, and one that, frankly, maybe not so many years ago would have been swept under the rug, but the community has taken a very proactive, and so many leaders, Jeff Downs, the YMCA, all the sports, and now even at the state level, it seems to be really embraced as far as, we need to do what we need to do to protect our youth.
Enough. We're going to fix it.
Enough, exactly.
And I think now we're just waiting for town meeting approval. What the selectmen just looked at a couple of weeks ago, working with Bob Carrera and Reverend Dudley. We've got Debbie Spinelli. I mean, there's a bunch of people that have been involved in that and done a great job. But that started out as something, and again, people and community coming together. So really, I'm the luckiest guy up there out of 160 in the house to have the 3 types of communities that I have, and their willingness to again work together. It's been a real honor.
And I'm here, of course, talking with Jay Barrows, who's our state representative here in Foxborough, Mansfield, Norton, and the 1st Bristol District. And, time goes so quickly when I'm talking with you. I feel as though old friends, we could be talking over a coffee. But, speaking of the schools, Foxborough had a massive renovation in our high school. It was done way under budget, on time, and really improved the educational environment up there. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, it was funny, working with Bill Euchner, who is a master. He is the best. And Superintendent Spinelli, great lady. We have such really tight rules with the school building authority, and they did such a wonderful job that they did come under budget, and they found some other things that needed to be covered. And I was really fortunate that Bill had informed me, and I was able to shepherd a meeting with a couple of people. And then one day, just walking out of the State House, the treasurer from the Commonwealth was walking in, Steve Grossman. He said, "Hey, how you doing, Rep?" And I said, "Well, I got a little problem in Foxborough." And so on the sidewalk, we spoke for about 3 or 4 minutes. And he had remembered me because I had been in there about 3 years earlier fighting for Norton to get their high school done. And again, working with the school building authority and the committee and so forth. So he said, "Let me see what I can do." And I think 3 days later, we had it resolved, and Foxborough got some additional funds, which was appreciated by all of us.
Yes.
But it's those sites, and again, we talked at the beginning about the terms and, making a mark and getting to meet people. it was that relationship that I had with the treasurer, and he's of a different party. Who cares what party you're in when you're fighting for your community? It's just like, hey, this is what we got to do.
All politics are local. That's right.
And so that was kind of cool that that got squared away as quickly as it did, and proud of the work that the committee did down there, and the school looks fantastic. And again, the Sam Burns Field and the work that everybody did to make that happen is truly a testament.
But also the labs and the life sciences and everything that is part of the educational foundation of that school, with the environment now being one that's safe and modern, and accessible, handicapped accessible. It's just a huge win.
Well, and it was a win here, and again, down in Foxborough we did a lot of work, and in Mansfield we've been doing work all along. I am very, very proud of the work that our schools do and the products that they produce.
Well, I know you work also on a regional basis on the STEM project. You want to
talk
a little bit about that?
We had, probably 3 years ago, I was invited to a conference with students at Bridgewater State. And they had various communities represented. We had some kids from Mansfield there. And so as an outgrowth of that, we were able to take and talk to the 3 school districts and say, gee, if we could work with our chamber, if we could work with Wheaton College, if we could work with our local businesses, because there are a bunch that are in that game. They're in the science, technology, engineering, and math. Life sciences, I mean, look at the technology that comes out of Schneider Electric. It's amazing. Covidian, the medical devices, Smith & Nephew, and go on and on and on. And so we did. And we had some great leadership out of Foxborough as well as Norton, and we're able to pull together 800 students to go through Wheaton College's Life Science Lab for a day, and it was amazing.
Fantastic.
And again, we brought everybody together to do that, and I hope that we can have a redo of that next year, and to give all these kids an opportunity to see what is out there. Working with the Creative School partnerships, where we take the seniors and again work with businesses to say, hey, can you take an intern, for a class? And we've got kids in all 3 of our communities that are doing just that. And,
doing senior project here in Foxborough is what they call it. It's a
so
great
again,
program.
it's again bringing people together and sharing ideas and collaborating.
So along with that, you do your part. You have interns that learn about, we'll call it civics, but learn about how government works. Let's talk about some of your interns.
Well, I had
back in the day, I knew you with Mike Berry.
Mike started with me. Actually, Mike's intern for the then State Senator Brown, and then came on board with Ginny Coppola. And so when we traded places, Mike stayed on with me, and Mike stayed on for probably 3 years, did a great job, and went on to getting his master's in public administration, and then on to, and now is the legislative liaison for Mass DOT. So he is, he fields all the questions from the area reps, but for me to have, his cell phone number.
You've got the personal line.
As we say, we have the fast track to stop signs and traffic lights. So great young man, served on the school committee in Walpole, served on the Board of Selectmen in Walpole, just a really good guy. So it's really a pleasure to have had a little touch with him and push him along and see him achieve those things. He won't give me any credit, but I'll take a little. Great kid. Meredith Rodman, granddaughter of Jerry, the late Jerry Rodman. Great young lady. She came into the office. She started as an intern, and then when Mike left, it was okay, Mary, I need you, and she came on board, and she too finished her master's in public administration. And just 2 weeks ago, after her stint with me, she went to MIT. Into the real estate division. And spent 1.5 years there, and then just landed a great job in the city of Marlborough as the economic development manager.
Wow, congratulations
27 years old, smart. So really pleased with her. And then just recently, Jack Walton from Foxborough joined me as my full-time legislative aide, and he had interned under Meredith and knows Mike. And so again, it makes it a little bit easier. We've seen a number of our legislative aides and legislative analysts that have worked, under the Republican veil, move on to great positions within state government now with the change of administration. So it's a whole new day. When I can call up the gentleman that runs the Department of Unemployment for a constituent or an employer to say, hey, could we take a look at this? Or somebody at MassDOT, or, it just, Department of Education, DSS, I mean, it goes on and on and on.
Well, it's all about connections and getting your network built, and that's true in any job or any business.
Right.
So there's no reason to not believe that would be equally important in the legislature. And,
right.
One of the great things about America is that we can always vote people in and we can always vote people out.
Right.
And so, much credit to you for your staying power, but also thank you so much for serving. Again, I'm talking with Jay Barrows. We're so close to getting out of time. I just wanted to make sure that you got the last word, but I also want to toss a few other things out there. Some things that are small but important. For example, the parking lot on County Street.
Yep.
A lot of work went into getting that thing built. I know people here in Foxborough now take it for granted, but that was a pretty nasty environmental protection agency protected Superfund.
It was on the Superfund list.
It was on the Superfund list, right? I remember.
And when we hit rock bottom in 08, they were looking for shovel-ready projects, and many people before me had worked on it, but you kind of inherit some of this stuff and you get involved in it, and so we kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And one of the lead guys lived over in Sharon, so he knew the area really well, and we were looking at about a $25 million investment to clean this mess up that involved both Foxborough and Mansfield. So again, working with the two communities and coming up with a crazy idea of, gee, why don't we make it a parking lot? Then we don't have to dig to China to fill it with clean dirt, and preserve the neighborhood in doing so. So we were able to get it through, but I remember it failed the first time at town meeting, the zoning. And I said, we got to get this done. So we went back to work with the planning board, who the guys are great in Foxborough, did a wonderful job, sold it, to the community, and it went, I think it was unanimous the next year. And the federal government helped us. They paved it, they put the lights up, and DPW did a wonderful job, and it's striped and it plowed, and it's full, and it was pretty dismal. I don't remember if we even cut a ribbon, but the thing wasn't full. And to see the economy come back and people going to work and using it and appreciating not having to fight for space when they get over into Mansfield. Right. Again, a great regional solution using federal dollars and taking a site that was really horrible and having it cleaned up. So that was a good one. But it just goes to show that no matter what you try, you got to keep plugging.
You do.
And you can't take no always for the answer.
But it's also experience and understanding how it works. And sometimes a new idea takes a little while, and sometimes it's not a bad thing to revisit.
Right.
So real quickly, and you're going to get the last word to tell me all the things that you think I've missed, but there's another thing, the Drug and Alcohol Task Force. I know that there's a lot of work that's yet to be done, but that's really in the news these days.
Right. We've got to get some more energy into that. We had started back in 07. We had a number of tragedies around the whole drug issue, marijuana, and then we turned around as a state, legalized it, or decriminalized it, let's call it that. Right. And then in 2012, with an overwhelming margin, went for the excuse me, medical marijuana dispensaries, which is local now. Perhaps one we're learning more possible. But again, I think we're all in a learning mode, because it just since 2012 that whole process has been bumbled.
It's so new, and it's been,
yeah, exactly. So, but the regional Tri-Town Drug and Alcohol Task Force was centered around drug and alcohol for our kids in our three communities, and trying to get a bigger bang for the limited dollars that we have to spend on education. And we've had speakers come in, and the three communities have joined in. We've had some administrative changes, so we need to revisit it again, and I'm sure in September the call will go out, and because it's a whole new group of parents. Mm-hmm. In 2007, they might not have had a kid that was, a junior. Maybe that was a 3-year-old. So it's a whole new different
Right.
set of parents that, again, we need to learn from each other and what we might be able to do. So look to spending some more time on that. It is a local issue, and I'm sure we'll get the support from the superintendents in the 3 communities, and they'll all help us. And the police chiefs, as well as the fire chiefs and first responders, and the district attorneys, both in Norfolk and in New Bedford. So I'm excited about that.
Well, I hope when the time comes that you'll
Yeah,
use us
yeah,
as your
absolutely.
conduit to communicate out to the
Yeah,
community.
thank
We
you.
are always here to serve, just as you are always here to serve us here in Foxborough, Mansfield, Norton. I'm here with Jay Barrows, who's our representative. I'm going to give you the last word because we only have 30 seconds.
Well, I won't use all 30, but I thank you and in your work here in Foxborough Cable Access. You guys are the showpiece of the district on what you do and how you do it. You're consistent with your volunteers and giving back to the community, and a service that is sorely needed to keep people up to date. So congratulations to you, and it is truly an honor to represent Foxborough and Norton and Mansfield, and to be a local guy with local ties, and to see our communities survive and get better and stronger, and it all works. And I'm really happy to be there and happy to be the voice of the gem of Foxborough.
Well, there you go.
Or
Thank
Norfolk
you,
County. I'm sorry, I messed that
Gem
up.
of Norfolk County. Well, thank you very much for all of your service, Jay Barrows, and we look forward to talking with you again in the not too distant future, because we at Foxborough Cable Access are all about bringing good news to you. And I couldn't do it without my volunteers. You were very nice to mention volunteers. My volunteers: Betty Travers, Deb Sores behind the cameras, Paul Beck behind the glass, Lauren Batari, who allows us graciously to come on the air, and Michael Weber, who tells her that she has to. On behalf of all the volunteers, I want to thank you for watching us, and until next time, have a good night, Foxborough.